The first portable machine from Sinclair will be out next year sometime. We haven't got an exact date. And the first machine will be Spectrum-based.
You don't need me to give you a potted history of the ZX Spectrum, but I'm going to do it anyway, like really quickly, because I've got something more interesting to tell you about. Launched in 1982 by Sinclair Research as the successor to the ZX81, the Spectrum went on to sell 5 million units, helped in no small part by how affordable it was and how swiftly it became embraced as the format of choice for the embryonic British games industry. Further models replaced the original release before Sinclair botched the launch of its successor, the QL, in 1985, released Stupid Tricycle for Massive Idiots, and a year later sold its computer assets to rival Alan Sugar's Amstrad. Had that never happened, the story of the Spectrum might have been very different. Sinclair was known to be working on 3 products at the time of its sale, all of which had the power to invigorate the company or drive it further into the ground. The first, Loki, dubbed the Super Spectrum, was intended to be a £200 Amiga beta. The second, Janus or Janus, would have been the true successor to the QL, a design based around wafer-scale integration technology, basically stuffing all the guts of a computer onto a single superchip. And the last was one that Sir Clive spent years trying to perfect.
Eventually, all machines will be portable. Though what holds that back at the moment is that today's portables are a severe compromise in at least 2 ways. One is the display just isn't satisfactory.
Codenamed Pandora, it would have been a handheld ZX Spectrum, and despite being possibly the single most intriguing and ambitious technology Sir Clive ever worked on, very little is known about it. Sinclair long held the belief that the future of personal computing was portable, and was determined to crack the formula. His reasons for making the technology compatible with the Spectrum were simple. It already had a huge user base with a vast library of software, and the technology was relatively cheap. Spectrum designer Rick Dickinson worked up a series of design prototypes, some of which incorporated elements of early incarnations of the Spectrum, albeit with a built-in microdrive. However, while it was relatively simple to incorporate the intestines of the self-contained Specky into a laptop, the biggest challenge in making Pandora work was what to do about the screen. The liquid crystal is rubbish. Nobody pursuing that avenue is getting anywhere. Nobody in the world has an answer to the flat display problem, except us. Early portable devices used monochrome liquid crystal displays, a solution which Sir Clive clearly felt was unsatisfactory. He wanted to create a portable computer with a display that offered the same quality as a monitor. No small task in the mid-1980s when most monitors were the size of a garden shed. Sinclair was working on an in-house proprietary display technology which, frankly, sounds as if it was nothing short of completely insane. Housed within the lid of the Pandora would have been a flat CRT display, which folded down when it was opened. Due to the limitations of the time, the relatively small screen would have been reflected and magnified upon a built-in mirror, and it was that which users would focus upon. The effect has been likened to staring at a magic eye picture, with users having to stare into the middle distance in order to focus on the screen. It sounds like a solution not unlike the display seen in early arcade games, where a monitor would be housed in the body of the cabinet, angled to reflect off a mirror, or Nintendo's Game & Watch Panorama handhelds. Except, Rick Dickinson's concept suggests something slightly different. Replying on the news group, remember those Clive Sinclair in 2002, Dickinson wrote of the Pandora, "It was the size of a large, rather deep laptop, and was basically a portable Spectrum 128 with some new graphics modes taken from the Timex 2048, and of course a flat screen CRT. Because it wasn't possible to make colour ones, there were some experiments, but they all looked sepia, and because any ones that were bigger than an inch or so across tended to implode, the flat CRT screen was green, tiny and overdriven. It hid in the base of the lid, and when you open up the thing, a variety of mirrors and lenses hinged out to make a much bigger virtual screen that looked like a 12-inch monitor hovering somewhere beneath your knees. Bizarre doesn't begin to cover it." Amusingly, another Clive Sinclair user, former Sinclair programmer Rupert Goodwins, in 1999 posted the contents of an in-house Sinclair research document which was made available for all staff members to edit. It contained this telling exchange: "I'll have to look very closely at Pandora," followed by, "Everybody will have to look very closely at Pandora," and "The new portable will definitely not be released before it is ready," and "Hands up those who think Pandora's a 100% A1 product. 90%? 80%? 70%? And Pandora, a box from which escaped and spread all the ills of human life. And Pandora's box, thing from which unmanageable problems are rashly generated. And I'm going to start campaigning for a sphincter on donuts. Suffice to say, it suggests that, outside of Sir Clive himself, confidence in the Pandora was not exactly high. It's not known precisely when the Pandora project was canned. Indeed, Your Sinclair reported in its September 1986 issue that a no longer Specky-compatible version was due to be unveiled at the following year's Which Computer Show, but it seems likely that it was Amstrad who brought down the axe. Indeed, when the journalist Guy Cuny asked why the Pandora had been canned, shortly after the sale to Amstrad, Sir Alan Sugar fired back, "Have you seen it?" "Yes," replied Cuny. "Well then," grumbled Sugar Tits. Tellingly, it wasn't the Pandora as originally conceived which was unveiled, with muted wonderment, according to Your Sinclair, at the Which Computer Show in 1987, but the Z88 from Sir Clive's new company, Cambridge Computer Limited. It was the realisation of Sir Clive's portable dream, albeit in a form which failed to live up to the lurid Technicolor promise of those dreams. The small screen featured a new form of LCD display, Super Twist LCD, which seemed more a label to get around Sir Clive's aversion to LCD than anything with a real practical benefit. The keyboard was a return to rubber keys, with a little more tactile heft than the original Spectrum keyboard. The Z88 continues to boast something of a cult following, which is a polite way of saying that not many people bought it. As a system aimed solely at business users, it failed to achieve the same sort of market penetration as the Spectrum, and, somewhat sadly, now exists as an abrupt full stop to Sir Clive Sinclair's history as an innovator in the field of personal computing. Tellingly, by 1997, Sir Clive is the only remaining employee of his company, still perhaps trying to work out a way to create a donut with a sphincter.